So the second thing that I wanted to talk about here is actually Joe Lombardi, because that is like the biggest thing. I know there's still some people who are concerned about his time in Detroit, and I totally get it that it did not end well. But just kind of reading through this book, it just has made me realize that it was not a good fit for him in Detroit. And whether or not that was, Jim Caldwell's fault or Joe Lombardi's fault, Joe Lombardi at that stage in his career was so used to the Saints way of doing things and the amount of collaboration that the Saints were allowing under Sean Payton. And just it was not a good fit in Detroit is what I'm trying to say. And they talk about the way that the Saints, go about building their game plan. They take every single day of the week. They never finalize the game plan. Everything is collaboration from start to finish of the week. And Joe Lombardi, something he said is that when he got to Detroit, Jim Caldwell wanted every single detail of the game plan finalized by Tuesday, and then he would kind of take it and run with it. Yeah. So, the way that the Saints do it is they would stay up all Monday night, all Tuesday night, and have most of the game plan ready by Wednesday when practice was happening, and then hopefully have it finalized, like Saturday evening. But he was saying that Jim Caldwell in Detroit wanted every single piece of the game plan done by Tuesday. And so Jim Caldwell, or Joe Lombardi, had a smaller role and there was less collaboration in Detroit. And so to me, it just felt like he was never comfortable there and it was not a good fit for him.
Wow, I did not know that. That sounds dreadful. That reminds me of the movie Draft Day that we had to watch, where they're like, yeah, we'll just jump into the draft, whatever. And then they like have their plan already. Then the day of the draft comes and they're like, we should study this guy. This totally sounds like a draft day scenario. Wow, I didn't realize that was the case. Like, I don't know how most teams usually do this, but Tuesday seems a little bit early. You just got home. I can't even imagine that you've put this all together. And even I don't know when teams get analytics, but you're not really getting it till like Sunday night, maybe even Monday, perhaps, especially after the Monday night games are played. So to get your analytics then, of course, that means they probably weren't using analytics. Right. And, having them ready by Tuesday night is ridiculous. So if they're able to collaborate like that with the Chargers, that's great. That has been the focus of Staley when he hired all these different coaches from different backgrounds. We're going to work with everyone. Everyone has their own input. We won't have to use all of it, but I like everyone's perspective, whether you're from college, the pros, a newer guy, an older guy. We love all of it. So, I mean, it seems like not that they're copying the Saints, but if you're going to imitate anybody, Sean Payton and the way the Saints have run their offense, it's not a bad way to go.
Yeah, 100%. And so it was just really interesting to learn. Jeff Duncan described it as Jim Caldwell and several other coaches around the league kind of prefer like the less is more simplicity approach to building a game plan. And, they kind of prefer to have, things relatively stay the same. And, you add plays as you have to. And so, Joe Lombardi had a much smaller role, which is weird to say because he was going from being a quarterback's coach to an offensive coordinator, and his role was significantly lower. So it was not a good fit all around for anyone involved. And really, I was just kind of confused why the Lions ended up hiring Lombardi, because, he wanted to install a little bit more of the Saints culture. And basically anytime he had these new ideas, Jim Caldwell was shutting him down. And I love the way that Jeff Duncan described it, because the Saints offensive staff, all 11 men, would meet on Tuesday morning, and every single coach had a role. If the lowest assistant on the totem pole had an idea, had something that they noticed in film study, Sean Payton would listen to it and they would put it into practice. And if it worked, they would keep it. If it didn't, then they wouldn't move forward with it. And so I just like the way, hearing about this collaboration, because like I said earlier, we've heard collaboration and communication all throughout, like you said, all throughout Staley's process. And if this is who they're copying, then it seems like this is actually going to be put in practice. And that obviously is a much more efficient way of working with your assistant coaches.
No, I love hearing that. I appreciate that you've been reading all this and putting this together, because it's really cool to see how this is translating to what the Chargers are doing. And like you said, even the lowest guy on the totem pole, Cody Shada is considered their support staff. Yet as soon as they drafted Rashawn Slater, Brandon Staley goes, we had Cody Shada talk to us about him. He's part of the reason that we differentiate is not a coach. He's an analytics guy. Not that he's low on the totem pole, but he kind of is. But his input was important to them, and they took the player at 13th overall in the first round. So I love hearing that, and I can't wait to see how this translates. Wow.
Well, even Derek Ansley was talking about it. He has all these connections to these players, and he was asked about Asante Samuel Jr. and he was asked about Josh Palmer and what they're like as players. So Staley has already kind of shown, hey, I'm going to listen to these coaches and take their opinions to heart. And we're coming from a coaching staff that clearly communication was lacking. We said several times throughout the season that there just seemed to be some kind of disconnect between Anthony Lynn and Shane Steichen. Despite the fact that they were both offensive-minded head coaches. So it just seems like hopefully that kind of lack of communication is behind the Chargers.
I hope so. I'm really curious if they're one of the teams that would install on Tuesday and leave it on Tuesday. It wouldn't surprise me. But even even if you do that, it feels like even if that's your game plan on Tuesday, it even felt like the Chargers last year. Like, spend the rest of the week on communication or game time situations or something. Yeah. I mean, it really just felt like they had everything done by Tuesday, and then they all just went home. Like, what happened?
Well, I don't know if you heard. Did you hear what Teddy Bridgewater said about Carolina recently?
I've heard like little bits about it, but go for it.
So Teddy obviously was in New Orleans, right? And then he goes to Carolina, who it was mostly a staff who had just come up from college. And so someone asked him about like the struggles in Carolina and what that was like. And he basically was saying like the attention to detail was just not there. And, this college coaching staff, because when you're in college, you don't really focus on all these details. You frankly just focus on, X's and O's, making sure that X player is, ready to graduate, eligible for, his classes, and, hopefully he's in good shape and all this stuff. Like, it's such a more basic level of football than the NFL was. And so Teddy Bridgewater, one thing he said is like, we didn't practice 2-minute offense until like late in the season. And by then we were like done. And he's like, we didn't practice, red zone very often because we were just doing, general basic position drills. Like, I'll practice long. Jeez. And, one of the things that, Jeff Duncan mentions that the coaches in New Orleans know that attention to detail is like the #1 attribute. And, some of these coaches said that they were sleeping at the facility that Sean Payton had built in like a room for coaches to sleep in, like with a shower and everything. And all these coaches were just, everything was attention to detail. That was the whole thing. And, they talked about some coaches were assigned to watch film from like 3 years prior to try and find like weaknesses in Bill Belichick's defense or Tom Coughlin's defense. And, if it's a new coach, you have to watch all of his previous stops and like try and find these tendencies and try and find these weaknesses. And then, you look at like the Chargers staff last year, and there just was not that attention to detail. Obviously not everyone is going to go to that extreme that the Saints have, but it was just amazing to read about the, 100% dedication to attention to detail that Sean Payton and his staff have had recently.